作为一个365天都住在酒店、没有固定地址的我来说，我和酒店有说不完的故事。它是一个城市的文化缩影和艺术地标。我们的生活方式在这里展开，也被潜移默化的影响。我有幸在这里坐下，和他畅聊，我们的思绪在这里回荡。他的见解和经历，好似一把钥匙，为我开启了一扇全新的大门。我走进去，又重新了解了一遍这座城、这里的文化，以及我对世界的进一步认知。
Good morning, Eric.
Morning.
Maybe some of the advice we can give to the people who in the hotel industry or general young people.
Right.
I think we are in a very new time. It's very different from when I was growing up and when I just started working.
Okay.
I think.
Not that long ago.
How long have you been living in China?
Will be 20 years. So I've definitely been to China for a long time.
Yeah. Actually longer than I did.
I always make a joke when I see a small kid in the elevator and the kid looks at me and then looks at the parents and says, "Why Korean?" Then I say, 你好，小朋友，怎么样？真是他会说中文。I've lived longer in this country than you have.
Use 3 words to define yourself. Okay, let me do it.
All right.
You. First one definitely is charismatic. That's the first feeling you give me, like strong aura. Non-conformist.
Right. Yeah, I'm maybe a very individual thinker in the sense that just because it's the norm doesn't mean that I wouldn't challenge the norm. I don't always go with the flow. I might at times say, okay, no, I don't believe in it, which pushes me then into different directions.
Okay, so the third one, energetic.
These are definitely 3 attributes that would fit. I think the other part that I have is I can be a little bit, I can be very detail oriented.
Okay.
Just have this personal sense of aesthetic that fits me. I then try to obviously also have it reflected in my surroundings or in the hotel surroundings and environment. So if something, a picture for example, is not straight on the wall, it's not that I seek out small little things. It's just sometimes it just jumps into my eye and then it's very hard to ignore it for me.
That's super important for people in the luxury hotel business. As a traveler, if I stay at a luxury hotel, the difference are among the details. While I saw the vase, while for normal people it's just a vase, but for you it has to be prettier.
Yeah, correct. It needs to fit, needs to have the right shape.
Yeah.
The arrangement needs to fit the vase, etc., etc. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
The other part that is important is that in luxury hospitality nowadays, I think we also cannot just say one standard applies to everybody. I think it's very important to understand that every person is in a way unique needs and preferences, and to be able then to tailor towards these individual needs. Quite a number of regular guests. Back then, there was a lady who was in charge of customer experience for Dior. We got to know her because she liked the hotel, she tended to entertain in the hotel. So after some time, whenever she had VIP guests, she would always come here and she said, you know, the reason why we come here is that you understand what we're trying to achieve. You always try to bring out something special. And so we always did amenities for her. And I remember once, she came in, she was wearing pinkish color shoes, a little bit darker than what you're wearing. So I called my pastry chef back then and I said like, hey, can we do macaroons of that color? And then we presented macaroons and sent it there, and I wrote a little card and I said, I think it might match your outfit today. And then she took a picture where she could see the plate with the macaroons and her shoes, and then she posted it on her WeChat. And she said, yeah, only at the Mandarin, the attention for detail. And it was very nice, and I encouraged then my team. I said, it's like, guys, this is exactly what we need to achieve, because these people have a lot of connections, right? And a lot of people, or a wider audience, will see these posts. And it is a great opportunity of creating word for mouth without having to do really all that much, right? It takes a bit of effort, and it takes a bit of of seeing what makes people tick or what would people feel would speak to them personally.
Yeah.
So I think this part of saying, yeah, we need to really cater for individual guests and their individual needs is very important nowadays, instead of just saying standard or buying the best equipment or just being expensive.
Yeah. So what is your goal?
Can be successful, I mean, it depends on how you measure success, right? Success is not necessarily material. Success can be to be good in something. You can be a very accomplished, successful waiter or sommelier. You just have knowledge and you're able to do your job really well. I think that can be considered success. But I think in different stages, at least in the hotel career, you need different skill sets. So while in the beginning probably it's a little bit more based on technical knowledge or on skill sets of how to do things. At a later stage, what becomes more interesting is innovation. Because you need to also see the future, you need to see trends. We all know that the hotel industry has definitely changed over the past 20 years, where before you would say, it's like, yeah, just give me a big room, ideally spacious, there needs to be a TV. Now having a Dyson hairdryer is almost the basic minimum standard of being considered a 5-star hotel in China.
Yeah.
To come up now with ideas and innovation, it's a different set of competencies. If you ask me, my personal goals, where do I get the job satisfaction, is bringing innovation to the hotel.
If with freedom of choices, would you have
done something differently? Good question. I have different interests and
yeah.
hobbies.
Obviously.
It's funny is that in a way they still come out within this hospitality context. I like flowers, I like gardens, enjoy cooking a lot. I actually started off, my first internship, so to say, was actually in the kitchen, being a host. That I found always was fascinating, because I knew that from my grandparents who entertained a lot at home, and I knew that from my parents who used to entertain quite a bit at home. So that was always something that I felt was a very aspirational role, to be a perfect host.
For me, like, my work is my personal life. I have the opportunities to see the world, to experience the luxury experiences, because it's not hotels anymore. It's a whole experience. And I get to see the cities. So that's also the question I keep asking myself. How do I balance work and life?
I'm in the fortunate position that I really enjoy this industry.
Yeah.
I never feel that this is now work, this is just part of life as well. But I think the key point is to be able to switch off in your mind when you need to say, it's like, okay, now I need time to rebalance or recharge, to be able to say, it's like, okay, no, I will not look at emails now for the next 24 hours, I'm off. That I think is important, that you have that ability for yourself. Sometimes you need to take one idea and then concentrate on this idea and see how you spin this forward. And
I think Guangzhou still have the culture, like the old part of it, I wanted to know about.
If you come for the first time to Beijing, probably want to see the Great Wall, the Forbidden City, the Summer Palace. I mean, because you already have a fairly good mindset before you arrive of what are the key cultural components of that city or the key cultural landmarks. But if you're in Guangzhou, it's maybe not always so easy where to start, which I think take more time to discover. It is, of course, the birthplace of Cantonese cuisine. So you have an abundance of great restaurants and sometimes tiny little eateries. You need local knowledge, local expertise, somebody who could really say, it's like, try this one, don't try that one. And if you spend a bit of time, it is also a very rewarding city in that sense.
That's a good thing to mention. If I know area, okay, this area is good to walk around or find just a cafe. Oh, this restaurant looks interesting, you know, can try, thinking of what I can discover in Guangzhou.
More people tend to go back to that way of discovery. I tend to think whenever I go to a city, I maybe try one or two things that I say is like, oh, I definitely want to try this, I heard about it. And the rest is a bit like, let's go and see and discover and maybe ask a taxi driver where does he like to eat, or what does he think is good. Ask the concierge. So really to leave it a little bit more open to discovery instead of having everything planified step by step by step by step by step.
My favorite slogan is, Kurt, it's not the end of the world. Calm down. What about you?
I always believe that in my role, in the role of a general manager or a department head, you are kind of an enabler. I'm always happy if there's somebody who stands out where you say, it's like, okay, really wants to do something different, or wants to try out something, or has a great idea, has great motivation, to then encourage. I'm not too sure this is going to work out, but I think it's also important to encourage at times things which may end in failure, because if you don't have that experience of failure, if you don't have that result, you may also not start thinking again, where did I go wrong? For me, I was always brought up, if something doesn't work, then I am supposed to find out why is it not working.
Yeah.
I need to challenge that status quo and say, come on, fix it, or what does it take to fix it? And
if I'm going to open a restaurant today, what is one advice you can give to me?
I think it's still the old adage of location, location, location. Is still super, super important. Because if you already naturally have footfall traffic,
Yeah.
that definitely helps, because then you just need to figure out what would be the right concept that would attract people. But the people are already passing by your location, right? You're easily visible. If you don't have a great location, you will always struggle with not getting enough people into your doors. And then the concept part is, it needs to appeal. And then you need to be careful to say, is it destination dining, or is it fast turnover, high volume? Many, many components, really. There's no simple tip of saying, do this, and you'll be building your empire very soon. No.
If I got very consistent jobs, I just don't have the excitement of what's next. What's, that's no challenge. For me, it's becoming a problem. I also have to look at it because it's a business.
We have a great cake shop, but the cake shop is really designed like a jewelry store. So you have these showcases that need to be curated and need to be carefully designed. So I always try and tell the teams, like, think about it like the shop front of Hermes or Dior, or pick any other shop in the first floor of Taiko Hui. Think about it from that perspective. It really needs to look picture perfect for people to be appealed to go in and say, let me discover. And now think about it. Do they keep the same setup throughout the year? No. I said exactly. So you answer my next question, should we change? Is it time to maybe say we should at least have 4 collections for our pastries and cakes, right? And at times the team struggles because this is like, we just got it right, he was happy with it, and 3 months later he now is asking already for a next one. But yeah, this is the same way where I'd say if I see the same thing again and again and again, I also get tired of it. And I think our customers are the same. Because you need to also think from a customer's perspective, what are you offering? How much novelty do you offer? Struggle whenever it becomes too routine.
What your hotel did in the past 2-3 years, it's very bold. You spend so much money to do this thing, like what's your return? Okay, let's have failed before. You have the experience and you know we should do this and that. This is gonna work. Like, how do you do this?
I have failed before. Yes, indeed. In this case, it's super, super true. I was the director of food and beverage here for the opening. Yeah. And so I opened our Western all-day dining restaurant. To a certain extent, I could say I was given a concept. The concept was kind of developed. We were supposed to execute it. But I also didn't push back too much. It was a Western concept, like a grill restaurant, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And this was 13 years ago. Western restaurants a la carte in Guangzhou were actually a complete minority. I mean, you had very few. People were a little bit more interested for Western restaurants in terms of having a buffet. Ideally, the bigger the buffet, the better. As a food and beverage professional, as an operator, we did not really take into account what is actually the preference for the client. What does the guest want to eat? We felt that, well, we're an international hotel, we must have a Western restaurant. So we must have a steak selection and this and that and whatsoever. But after quite a number of years, we realized, yeah, it's not resonating with the market. And that's why I said, well, we've tried now for so many years, and we did from a la carte to semi-buffet to full buffet to back to a la carte, and it really it didn't move the needle anywhere. That we said, well, it's maybe just the wrong concept. Our clientele here in Guangzhou is mainly local clientele that comes to dine in our outlets, and there's a very strong food culture and identity in Guangzhou about Cantonese cuisine or Chinese cuisine, so that we said, okay, maybe we do a Chinese bistro. And so it took us a couple of years, or took me quite a number of years of doing self-reflection, of saying, okay, now we come up with something. And I had, this idea was floating in my head already for quite a number of years, but to be eventually able to do it, and clearly we got also the owner's support, right?
Yeah.
It was also a long project. I mean, the initial planning phase took us 2 years plus. Before we then said, okay, now let's start, and we had it all down packed, and the design was finally what we wanted.
There must be so many voices like doubt it and give you a challenge.
There certainly were voices of concern, really. Are you sure? If you have 2 Chinese restaurants, will people get confused? Are you going to lose out customer base because you don't have a Western restaurant? I mean, so certain things you could very clearly showcase with just pointing out facts. Let's look at the current performance. And the current financial performance of the Western restaurant before was very clearly showcasing that there is a strong business case of making a change. We also need to take into account the current situation in terms of what is average spending. If you want to have a Western restaurant and you want to be considered as authentic, often you also need to go into imported ingredients. Imported ingredients are definitely more expensive. And we saw over the last few years, since I would say beginning of 24, average check definitely was not the same as it used to be. During COVID, people were happily spending. Before COVID, spending power was also better. But we saw there was definitely a trend in the market from fine dining towards casual, less formal, and also lower average check. Speaks volume about what the client actually wants and what the client is willing to spend. Because there's no point that I have a great fine dining restaurant if I don't have a customer base that is willing to come on a regular basis. It's not enough if people come, let's say, once a month. That will not sustain. So there were voices of concern, but I mean, as I said, with facts we could showcase quite clearly what had to be changed. And then it was important for us to say, like, okay, if we wanted to do something, do we have the right partner who can pull this off? Yeah. And because we worked for many years, I mean, I started this hotel and then found Chef Fei, and we built up this partnership here, right? He's the ideal partner together with his wife Alina to come up with this casual concept. And so that's why we created that whole storyline. And we are not limiting ourselves to Cantonese or Chaozhou cuisine. Yeah. Certainly Chef Fei has his roots there, but we're saying if it tastes nice, if it's something that you like to eat, then it should be here on the menu. So you will find Hunan influences, you will find Sichuan influences, etc.
Because I saw my hometown food there, so it was like very highlight. Like, oh, how come you have this? You know, and it tastes great.
The variety also makes it interesting because you could say, hey, I come today and I maybe just sit here by the bar, order a bowl of soup and maybe one dish, and I'm done. And you could say it's like, oh, today I want to bring my friends, and we have maybe a little bit more dishes. So it gives you a lot of variety for different occasions.
Yeah.
And that I think is important, because the name Tang is actually very well chosen in that sense of being a hall or a gathering place. It's not just a restaurant. It's about coming together, meeting people, or sharing a space.
Yeah. For someone aspiring to reach a position like yours, what is one skill they should start cultivating today?
People skill and presentation skills. You need to be able to read and understand whom you're dealing with. Whether it's your customer or it's your boss or it's your boss's boss, right? You need to have an idea, this person, what does that person want? And then presentation skills in order to, how do I now, to the best of my abilities, present something to this person, understanding what he wants, and showcasing that I'm the right person. And if you are not able to present that you're the right person for it, it's going to be hard. It's less and less opportunity where you say the boss identifies you as a talent and says, oh, Kurt, I really think that you have great creativity. Let me take you on and mentor you and bring you to the next level, next level, next level.
How do you balance preserving timeless traditions of luxury hospitality with innovating for the young, modern, often younger luxury traveler? I think
yeah, but it's a good question, because I think that's nowadays a little bit the struggle. You need to have the tradition or the understanding as a basis before you can now venture out into a bit more creativity, etc. Because you still draw, or you still need to have roots and foundation somewhere. If you don't have an understanding of the foundation or of the basis, creativity can be, just a gimmick at times. So I think this is not always easy to balance that well. I still find it very nice to go to a formal restaurant and have a formal dinner service. I think that's really requiring a skill set that it's hard to find nowadays.
What do you think are the challenges for your hotel?
The offering or the experiences that the hotel could bring to a guest are not always obvious to the guest, unless we really engage a lot with social media content. We always notice that a lot of guests, they get inspired somewhere about a destination or picture on Little Red Book. Oh, I want that image. I want to see myself at that pool, in this hotel, so on and so forth. I think that's maybe sometimes a challenge, how to bring this more towards the customer, that we have a great experience that could be discovered. So that's why we engage a lot with yourself and all kind of media, of seeing how we can bring out more content that can retargeted customer group.
I don't see other hotels put so much attention on art or put the style in a big attention, and you did.
And how could we define ourselves versus the competition? Because you cannot do a full renovation in such a short time period, right? I mean, you need to come up with something else. I said F&B, we have Jiang, 2 Michelin stars. That's already very solid, very strong. We need to think about a solution there. But I said we need to, in the meantime, already come up with something that can set us apart. So I think we were thinking about the 10th anniversary of the hotel. And so I was like, oh yeah, maybe we can do something with art. How about art? And my marketing team liked the idea. We said, oh, maybe we could do 10 exhibitions in 10 months. As you can tell, we went into this a little bit naive and blue-eyed, but sometimes you need to have this very far-fetched goals or very hard-to-reach goals in order to push yourself really to get there. And so we did. We really we knocked on doors. We asked people, and it says like, we want to do this. We're enthusiastic. For us, the idea about art came to say, well, we needed to do something a little bit different, because you cannot just say it's like I keep on opening restaurants or I keep on changing restaurants or concepts, right? Yeah. I mean, that's not so easily possible.
We couldn't do 10 exhibitions. We couldn't do 1. We could do 2. That's very inspiring. How do you define luxury in today's world, and how does that definition guide every decision in your hotel?
Luxury is that a hotel offers the right experience at the right time for the guest. I'm here for you. When you need me to maybe come and explain the facilities, just let me know. I'm there for you. So I think this really individualization, this personalization towards guest needs, I think is really where the luxury starts.
Yeah.
I think offering experiences that are more than just hardware, that also is something that is very desirable in the luxury context. To make you feel good about yourself is clearly a big asset if you can manage to give the guest that kind of feeling. So wellness is something that we feel is coming more and more to the forefront. People are more interested about wellness. People are interested about healthy living. All these aspects, I think, is coming more to the forefront in luxury hospitality.
Where do your ideas usually come from?
They can come literally at any given point of time. Sometimes it's by discovering something new or having a conversation indeed. That we have a great museum towards Foshan, her art museum. When they first opened, I was very excited about the fact that, wow, such a great museum with a great building would come here to this region. So we started off conversations and we said, why don't we take something that can highlight the existence of this museum which had just opened. So we did something for Zongzi, which found somebody who liked the packaging so much he bought the entire series in one go, which was interesting. But then having had these conversations, at one point of time we said, oh, you know what would be really cool, it came out of nowhere, would be, oh, if one could do a night in the museum. And yeah, somewhere there is this movie, I think, where all kinds of crazy things happen. But I was just like, oh, maybe that's possible. But by voicing it out and talking more about it, you say, yeah, why don't we do this? And then there was enthusiasm on both sides of saying, yeah, could we actually make that happen? And yeah, we've done this now for the second time, and we will continue with that.
Thank you for the lesson.
Thank you, Kurt. My pleasure.
I learned so much.
Cheers.